So I came down here to the plots because it honestly sounds like a tornado is going through up on the front porch. So much wind up there, so I'm using the shipping container down here to block all the wind coming from the south. But today I want to talk about the next step actually in the front yard, which we'll be going up there to take some soil samples and to show you the soil test kit that I'll be using as the next steps in the front yard as I get this thing growing for the season. So last year, right behind me, these plots here, I took some soil samples and I did a soil test just to see where I was at down on these plots in terms of pH, in terms of the nutrients that's there in the soil, and what I may or may not need for fertilizers, and if I needed to do anything to try to change the pH or any of that stuff. This is something that I like to do because to get an understanding of those things really helps you figure out which fertilizers are going to be best for you, what's already in the soil, and what might be excess so you don't keep adding that when you don't need it. So we're not sitting that far from the front yard down to the plots, so you might be thinking, how could this be really much different in terms of the soil? But what I found here on our property is that sometimes even a few hundred feet, the soil can definitely change, properties can change, and so I just want to get a sense of what is going on in the front yard. Since it's a blank slate there, nothing there yet, and this gives me a good opportunity. So if you do have an existing yard, a good time to do this would be in the springtime before you start doing any fertilizers. That gets you that whole winter season of not applying anything so you get an accurate reading. If you happen to have already applied something, then I definitely wait at least probably 4 to 6 weeks before you do a soil test so that you get an accurate reading and it's not based off of what you just applied. So this year again I'm going to be using the RX soil kit. The reason that I like this is that they use the same lab and the same test type that I've been using for years. I actually send these in to Waypoint, which is what I have been doing for years, and that's an M3 test, so it's a Malic 3. That's the lab test that I like to do. What I would recommend with your soil testing is sticking with one type. There's going to be different test types depending on the facility that you use. So if you're sending this in, you're doing an M3, the next time you do it, you send it in, you know it's going to be the same type of test. You're not going to get variances in the results because of the type of test that they're doing. So let me show you how to use this kit. It's very, very easy, and I'll be taking some samples up in the front yard and tell you how to do that as well. We will open this up here. You've got your soil kit ID. You need to enter this number into the online system so that it tracks your soil sample and gives you the results and all that. So hold on to this and make sure you don't lose it. And then it's really nothing more than this bag that it comes with. It's going to have that same number on here again, so all of it's tracked. And then gives you a dotted line here to tell you where to fill to with your soil. So it's very easy to know how much soil to collect. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. All you're gonna do after that is place this in here, and the wonderful thing about this is that on the back here you got your prepaid. So all you have to do is go drop this in the mail to be sent to the facility. They'll do the test. Online you'll get the results in about a week or so. And if you're a nerd like me and you just are curious about the actual makeup of your soil, now they do offer a texture sample. So this is going to tell you the makeup of the soil in terms of sand percentage, how much clay is in there. And this is just good information to know because it will help you really dial in your irrigation and learn more about how heavy your soil is, or if it's sandier, it might need more water more frequently in less heavy amounts. I can visually see with my hands that I have a much sandier soil than I used to, but I'd like to know the makeup of it just so I can make some better decisions going forward, and knowing that makeup will help that. So they do have this available too if you'd like to go the extra mile and check on the texture of your soil. Same exact process in terms of this thing having a bag in here, your number here tied to your account and all of that stuff. So if you want to do that, you can add this as well. So you want to take these samples down to about 4 to 6 inches. So I'll make a mark here on my soil probe. That way I know exactly how much depth I need to go to. Then you're just going to go out there and take the sample. Hopefully your soil is not too hard to do this. You're going to have to time this out. If it's really dry for some reason, you're going to probably need some either irrigation on it or some rain to get a good soil sample. So you're just going to take your soil sample, take that out of the ground, put that into the bucket. Since I don't have any grass here, this is a little easier for me, but if you're doing this on a yard that already has grass, then you want to remove that top portion where the grass is and as many of those grass roots as possible, just because you don't want the organic matter in there on the test to be thrown off because it has a whole bunch of roots and stuff in there. If you're like me here and I just have soil, I need to sift through, make sure there's not any rocks or any other big material in there that needs to be taken out before I put it into the bag. I'm going to go around the yard now and take multiple samples. I don't want one specific spot plot here, I want a good broad look at the overall front yard. So I'm going to take samples from different parts of the yard and put them all in the bucket, take out the debris, and then mix this all together and then put it in the bag and put that back in the box to be sent off. Results are in from my soil test, and like I told you, there can be a difference even a few hundred feet away depending on maybe if soil was moved around at your property. And because we had built a new building, we had scraped off all the topsoil, then that got placed back, but I knew some of it was probably going to be mixed together. So the results are a little different than what I'm dealing with down at the plots, and that's a good thing to test just to make sure that you know what's going on. So let's take a look at the results. After you've taken your samples and placed them in the mail, you'll find a website link on the card that came in the box, and you'll want to follow that to set up your account. Obviously, I've already created my account, but you would click on Need an Account and go through the setup process. Now you will create a growing area. Select lawn, select cool season or warm season grass and your preferred type of products. This will not affect your soil test results, but are simply to help with recommendations. Now you will associate your kit to the growing area that you just created. The sample ID on your card from inside the box is your kit ID. After your kit is assigned, it will take about a week to get your results back, so this will show no results found until that test is completed and the results show up here. So it's a week later and my test results have come in. You should get an email notifying you that your results are in your account. So now I am in my account, and over here you can see I have the 2023 spring lawn. I will just click on this kit ID right here, got my results. And this one is a little different than some of the plots, so we'll go back to the plots here in a second and show you what might be different here. So you can see here I have a soil pH of 5.9, which is a little lower than I anticipated actually, but I think I'm going to give it a season once I get some grass growing here. We'll do another soil test next spring to just see if that number's dead on the same or what happens this season with it. So looking over everything here, I'm looking pretty good with phosphorus, slightly high in the potassium here. And everything else is fairly close to being in line, so I don't see anything that sticks out too much here except for the sulfur. So if you look here, if it's sulfur and you have more of a silty, sandy type soil, there's no turf on this soil right now. Something that doesn't have a high organic matter and is more on the sandy, silty side, sometimes that sulfur number can be lower with that. So what I would be targeting with that is going after some of my fertilizers having maybe ammonium sulfate. I do a lot of that stuff anyway, so I think that this number over time will probably come up anyway, but that is something that I can target since the number is quite low on sulfur. Everything else, small micronutrients here, these numbers I wouldn't be overly concerned about if they are low because you need such a small amount of them to make a difference. So something like zinc, and I do have a high iron content in my soil that was similar to what I found down in the plots. So if I'm able to use that iron that's in the soil, I wouldn't necessarily have to be targeting adding any additional iron on top of that. I like the way that this is presented just so you can easily see everything. And then also down here, if you continue to go down the page, you will see some types of fertilizer recommendations if you want to go after those. Now let's go back for a second and let's look at my test plot area, and we're going to find that we had a slightly higher pH down there. My organic matter was even lower, which I'm not surprised by because it's very, very silty, sandy down at the bottom of the hill where everything is pretty much washed down. And you can see a lot of my other nutrients were a lot lower down in that area as well. So same type of thing here. Sulfur is really low. Some of my micronutrients could go up a little more than the top area. And then the same type of thing as well, where I see a high iron content here. But again, this is about 1,000 feet away from where I just tested, so there definitely are some differences. So then one other thing to look at here was that soil texture analysis that I did. And this is pretty interesting too, because I need to do one of these down at the plot area. I bet I would get some different results from this too. So up here on the top of the hill, roughly 13.2% sand, 59.3% silt, and then 27.3% clay. Now, when I took this sample up on the top of the hill, I could definitely tell there was a lot more clay in it than I have down at the bottom of the hill, which I would anticipate be pretty much very heavily on the silty and sandy side of things down at the bottom of that hill where the test plots are. So I'll do one of these in the future just out of curiosity to see what the differences are. So if you have a really heavy clay soil, you have to think about your irrigation differently than if you have a sandy, silty soil where the water can easily get through that. It dries out a lot faster
faster. I've noticed that already here, that the drying out of the soil is much different than my old property where I had more clay in there and not as much silty and sandy stuff going on. Those are things to pay attention to. This is just an interesting thing to look at in different areas. Helps you with your strategy as well.
Hope that showed today how easy it can be to do a soil test. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.